Some alarms don't come with sound. They slip into your spirit and shake you awake before danger even knows it's arrived. And at 4:02 a.m. that morning, I woke up with my heart sitting too high in my chest, like God himself tapped me on the shoulder and whispered, "Get up." My phone lit up before I touched it, screen glowing like a bad omen. Unknown number. Something in me said answer. And something older in me, the part of a mother who has lived through storms quietly, said, "Brace yourself." The voice that came through wasn't a voice made for secrets. It was frayed, trembling, like fear was chewing her words from the inside. "Please," she whispered, breath short, "don't leave your house today. Don't step outside. Don't open your door. Please. You need to trust me." My spine went cold. There's a kind of panic that screams, and then there's the kind that begs like a life depends on it. "Who is this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm, steady, controlled. "My name is Patricia Reynolds, 62 years old, widow, mother of one, and until that moment, I believed I had raised a good man." She didn't answer my question. "Just, please, if you walk out today, you won't make it home." For a second, I thought she had to be mistaken, or deranged, or lying. My home was safe. My life was steady, but steady doesn't always mean whole, and safety doesn't mean untouched. "I don't understand." I whispered, "Tell me who you are." Her breath caught. I could hear the fear break in her throat. "I can't. Just trust me. Before noon, you'll understand." Then she hung up. Silence rushed into my bedroom like it had claws. I stared at the ceiling, feeling the air shift, like the world had tilted 1 inch in a direction I didn't choose. I should tell you something about mothers. We don't panic first. We remember. We measure. We listen to the tremor under the quiet. Lately, my son, Levon, had been walking around with a storm behind his smile. Quick calls he stepped away to answer. Tight jaws. Tired eyes. Apologies that felt rehearsed. I chalked it up to work pressure, life pressure, modern-day stress. Because a mother's love can be blind when her fear is trying to see. I pulled the curtain back, slightly. The street looked innocent, calm. But peace can be a disguise for something circling you. I don't shake easily. I've buried a husband and held my own through the kind of grief that changes bone. But that morning, something old in my spirit rose up like a warning bell. No theatrics, just truth. I stepped away from the window. My robe suddenly felt thinner. My heartbeat louder. I reached for my phone just as it buzzed again. Unknown number. Don't go anywhere. The same voice whispered, raw and trembling like she'd been crying the whole time. Before noon, you'll understand everything. Then she whispered one more thing, voice barely hanging on to itself. It's about Levon. And right there, I felt the world lean in, waiting to see if I would break or follow instinct. Because when danger wears a familiar face, it doesn't knock. It waits on your front porch with patience and a plan. But I didn't know that yet. All I knew was that before sunrise, a stranger feared for my life. And before noon, my only child was going to shatter it. Before noon, you'll understand. Morning didn't feel like morning. It felt like the world woke up, holding its breath, waiting for something to fall. I stood in my kitchen with a cup of chamomile I never sipped, watching dawn slide slowly across my yard like it was afraid to touch my house. A grown woman shouldn't be afraid of the sun rising, but fear doesn't ask if you're prepared. It just moves in and sits in your chest like it paid rent. I kept replaying that voice, the desperation in it, the urgency. A stranger doesn't tremble like that for nothing. But fear has pride as a shadow, and pride whispered, "Patricia, you're being paranoid. You raised a good son. You live in a good neighborhood. Nothing is coming for you." Still, I checked the locks again. People will call it overthinking until they wish they listened to their body's first whisper. I opened the curtains, expecting calm, but calm didn't come. A black sedan rolled slowly down the block, too slow to be casual, too early for errands. It didn't stop, just drifted like someone taking inventory of lives they didn't belong to. The driver didn't look my way, but silence can stare at you. And that morning it looked me dead in the face. I reached for my phone and dialed the one person who normally prayed peace back into my lungs, Sister Marian. Steady voice, gentle wisdom. Always the first one to bring a casserole when grief visited. The phone rang once, twice, 5 times. No answer. Strange. She answers at 6 a.m. without fail. Says God wakes her before the birds. I left a soft, whispered voicemail. "Sister Marian, call me when you rise, please." I paused, the weight in my throat surprising me. I don't know why, but I feel unsettled. I didn't mention the call. Not yet. Naming fear too early makes it real, and I wasn't ready for real. The phone stayed silent. The house stayed still. But my skin felt like it remembered something my mind hadn't caught up to, like danger was an old acquaintance it recognized by scent. I moved through the room slowly, as if each step might reveal a truth I wasn't prepared to swallow. Levon's graduation photo sat on the hall table, him smiling in cap and gown, eyes bright, hope alive. A mother sees the baby first, then the man. But that morning, I felt something inside me shift, memory and instinct colliding, mother and woman becoming two separate beings. I touched the frame, gently, almost apologetic. I raised a son with prayer and patience. I didn't raise fear. Yet fear was standing behind me like a shadow waiting to grow taller. The kettle clicked off behind me, breaking the quiet. I turned and froze. Another car, different one, passed by. Same slow glide. Same too early timing. Same wrong energy. My neighborhood is peaceful, but not silent like this, not observant like this. It felt like someone was standing on God's front porch, peeking through heaven's blinds. I wanted to call Levon, ask him about the dinner plans, about life, about whether he felt storm or sunshine in his chest this morning. But a mother's instinct is older than speech, older than denial. Something told me, don't reach out first. Let truth walk to you on its own feet. Instead, I reached for my Bible, not to read, but to hold. Sometimes faith isn't scripture. It's grip. I sat in my living room, robe wrapped tight, heart sitting upright like it was listening for footsteps. Minutes passed unevenly. Thoughts began to form shapes I didn't want them to. My phone still silent. My tea still untouched. My house still breathing slow. And then I heard it. A car engine, low and lingering, settling near the gate like hunger that decided to sit and wait. This day wasn't wrong. It was warning me. And warnings don't lie. The morning stretched slow, heavy like it was carrying secrets too large for the sky. I stood at my sink rinsing a cup I still hadn't drunk from, and my mind walked itself back to the moment this all started shifting, the moment Levon invited me to dinner like he was offering me a new life wrapped in a bow. It was last week, a Sunday evening. choir practice still humming in my ears when I stepped into my house, purse still on my shoulder. Levon was already inside. He'd let himself in with his key. He was standing in my living room, wearing that smile people wear when they rehearsed it beforehand, the kind that fits too perfectly on the face, but not quite in the eyes. "Ma," he said, spreading his arms, "I want to take you to dinner next Saturday. Somewhere nice." There was something in his voice, excitement stretched thin like plastic over something sharp. He sounded like a man who had practiced being joyful, not a son who simply wanted his mother's company. Still, I smiled back, because love doesn't look for cracks first. "That sounds lovely," I said. "What's the occasion?" He hesitated, a breath too long. "Just feel like you deserve a night out. Been thinking about life lately." Back then, I told myself grief changes people. He'd lost his father young, lost his footing after college, rebuilt himself, learned to stand again. I wanted to believe this dinner was gratitude ripened into maturity. But now I replay that scene and see things I ignored. The way his jaw clenched when I asked where we were going. The way he avoided eye contact when I asked who else would be there. I chalked it up to surprise. Now I know. Guilt speaks before guilt confesses. And then another memory slid in, one I had folded away like a shirt I didn't want to wear again. 2 weeks ago, night, I had come downstairs for water. Levon stood in the hallway, phone to his ear, voice low and sharp like he was trying to choke the anger back. "No, that's not what we agreed on." He hissed. "Pause. We're doing it my way." The tone wasn't my son, or maybe it was a part of him I never met. When he saw me at the bottom of the stairs, he flinched like someone caught in a mirror they didn't consent to stand in front of. "Who was that, baby?" I'd asked, gentle. He forced a laugh. "Work stuff. You know how it is." I nodded then, but mothers don't forget the sound of their child lying. It's a particular silence that fills the space right after. Now, standing in my kitchen, those lies stitched themselves together, whether I wanted them to or not. A knock pulled me from my thoughts. Soft, 2 taps, polite but cautious. I walked to the door. Heart steady, hand slow. The morning light cut across my porch, revealing Mr. Nelson from 3 houses down. Elderly, always walking early, always watching more than he speaks. "Morning, Miss Reynolds," he said, voice low like he didn't want God to overhear. "Morning," I returned, trying to sound normal in a world that no longer felt like it belonged to me. He leaned in slightly. "Did you have company yesterday?" "No," I said. "Why?" His brow creased. 2 young men stopped me on my walk late afternoon. Asked what time you usually go out on Saturdays. Said they were planning something nice for you. Cold slid down my spine like a hand made of ice. My smile didn't fall. Strength makes you hold dignity even while fear takes its seat. "That's so." He nodded, eyes uneasy. Didn't like their tone. Didn't feel like surprise party talk, if you understand me. Oh, I understood him. Too well. I thanked him, closed the door slowly, and stood there breathing quiet, steady breaths. This wasn't imagination. This wasn't nerves. Something or someone was circling my life. And if danger was planning for me, then so was God. By mid-morning, the air in my home felt too thick to breathe normally. Not loud fear, quiet fear, the kind that sits behind your ribs and waits for you to admit it's there. I moved from room to room, not because I had anything to do, but because standing still made me feel like a target. Curtains drawn, lights off though the sun was bright enough to bless every corner. I didn't want blessing. I wanted clarity. And clarity wasn't coming easy that morning. My phone vibrated sharp enough to make my hand jerk. I picked it up expecting nothing, and got dread instead. Unknown number again. My pulse didn't speed up. It slowed, like my heart was trying to brace itself for what it already knew was coming. Hello. My voice was steady. Motherhood teaches you to hold your tone steady even when your bones are trembling. Her whisper returned like it never left, raw this time, words scraped thin by panic. Please tell me you didn't leave the house. No, I said, I'm still here. Who are you? Why are you calling me? She inhaled like somebody had a hand on her throat. I can't say. I wish I could, but I can't. Just please don't go outside. Not today. I swear to you, staying inside is the only thing keeping you safe. Safe. A strangely heavy word when you suddenly realize you don't know what threatens you. You know something, I said, quiet but firm. You know something about my son. Silence, then a soft sob she tried and failed to swallow. I never wanted it to go this far. She choked. I thought he was just angry. I didn't know her voice broke before the truth could land. Tell me who you are. I pressed, not unkind, but unflinching. If you cared enough to warn me, then trust me enough to finish the sentence. Her breath trembled like a dying match. I'm trying to protect you. That's all I can do. And just like before, the line died. Fear doesn't always slam doors. Sometimes it just exits without saying goodbye. My knees felt weak, but I didn't sit. Sitting felt too vulnerable. Instead, I walked to the kitchen to distract my mind, opened the fridge, closed it again without looking, reached for a glass, put it down untouched. Sometimes survival looks like pretending to do something while your spirit scans the horizon for danger. The phone rang again. Different tone. Familiar name. Diane, my housekeeper. I answered fast, expecting normalcy, comfort, grounding. Morning, Diane. Miss Reynolds. Her voice sounded like she was choosing every word with tweezers. I won't make it to the house today. Something, came up. Her tone wasn't casual. It was careful, like she was speaking while someone stood behind her. That's all right. I said slowly, is everything okay? A pause. Too long, too shaky. Just stay blessed today, ma'am. Her voice cracked. She hung up before I could respond. I stood frozen, phone still against my ear, hearing her silence more loudly than her words. Diane never called out. Not once in 8 years. And people don't sound like that unless they know more than they can safely say. I pressed a hand to my chest, not in pain, in warning. That ancient instinct every Black mother carries, the one passed down through generations who survived storms, quietly whispered, "You are not imagining this." I walked to the front window, pulled the curtain with 2 fingers. A white SUV sat at the corner, like it had been carved out of stillness itself. Engine running, windows dark, no movement, waiting, not lost, calculating. Fear didn't hit me then. Resolve did, the kind that rises slow, deliberate, like a woman who's buried enough dreams to know when life shifts from gentle to dangerous. I wasn't panicking anymore. I was preparing, though for what? I didn't have a name for yet. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I answered without breathing. Her whisper returned, sharper, urgent enough to pierce bone. Listen to me. If you leave that house today, you will not come home. They are out there. Don't give them the chance. Stay inside, no matter what. Her voice cracked on the last word. Please, please don't step outside. The line held just long enough for a final, shivering sentence. If you leave, you'll never come home. Time moves different when you're waiting on nothing and everything at the same time. I sat in my living room, robe wrapped around me like armor, watching the clock drag itself across the morning. Each minute felt like a warning disguised as routine. At 11:54 a.m., the air suddenly sharpened. My phone rang. Not the tremble of threat this time, but the heavy certainty of authority. A number I didn't recognize, but with a weight behind it. I picked up like my hand already knew my life was about to split open. Miss Reynolds. The voice was professional, clipped, controlled. Not fear. Not danger. Authority. This is Sergeant McLean with the County Police Department. A chill traveled down my spine in one straight line. Not shock, confirmation. Something in me had known all morning that truth was waiting on the other side of a ring tone. Yes, I'm here, I answered, voice quiet but steady. We need to inform you. He paused, letting silence sit like an unwelcome guest. Your son, Levon Reynolds, has been taken into custody. My throat didn't close. My heart didn't slam. Instead, everything inside me went very still in a way that felt ancient, ancestral, like all the women who came before me stood behind me at once. So I didn't fall. For what? My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. Too calm for a mother. There was credible evidence of a planned abduction against you today. The world didn't crash. It leaned like it wanted to fall, but didn't dare, without my permission. My son. I whispered, as if saying it too loudly would make it real. Yes, ma'am. He was intercepted with 2 individuals prior to the attempt. Kidnapping. My child. My only child. Words that should never exist in the same breath. Is he hurt? I heard myself ask, because motherhood doesn't cancel itself, not even under betrayal. It just bleeds quietly first. No, ma'am. He is in custody. I closed my eyes. A stillness washed over me. Not peace, not calm, just surrender to truth. Pain like a blade dipped in ice. Before my breath could fully settle, another call flashed on my screen. Local number, familiar name. Councilman Avery, my late husband's old friend. I let the officer finish. He cleared his throat. We believe you were the intended target. You are safe for now. A pause. But there's something else you need to know. I didn't get to hear it yet, because the other call wouldn't stop vibrating across the screen, like urgency wearing perfume. I'll call back, I murmured to the officer and switched lines. Patricia? His voice rushed through the phone like he'd been running. I heard there was an incident. Are you all right? Do you need help? Legal counsel? Security? Too fast. Too ready. Too informed. How did you hear anything? I asked, tone polite but not soft. He paused, just a fraction of a second, but long enough to betray the truth. Oh, police scanner. You know how this city works. No scanner rings that fast with names attached. People do. People who already know. People who expect to be told before news becomes public. Thank you, but I'm fine. I murmured, something new forming in my voice, dignity solidifying into suspicion. Patricia, listen. He lowered his voice. Urgent. Don't make any statements yet. We can handle this quietly. For Levon's sake, just tell them you don't want to press anything. Press anything. He was already negotiating my forgiveness like I owed it. I haven't asked for help, I said softly, and I don't accept solutions before I understand problems. He exhaled sharply, frustration disguised as concern. You know, I'm only saying this because I care. Families make mistakes. Don't let outsiders destroy yours. Mistake. That word stung. A mistake is a broken plate, a rude comment, a forgotten promise. A planned kidnapping is not a mistake. It is intent wearing your blood as an alibi. I'll call you later, I said, and hung up slowly. The house went silent again. Not empty, listening. I switched back to the police line. Sergeant, I'm here. He drew a breath, voice lowering like he was stepping into the heart of truth. Ms. Reynolds, he said, tone solemn. There's something else you need to know? Officer McLean didn't speak right away. Sometimes silence is the doorway where truth waits to be invited in. I stood by my window with the phone pressed to my ear, the morning sun touching the floor, but refusing to warm anything. I didn't sit. My dignity wouldn't let me. Not while hearing about my own son in a sentence I still wasn't ready to believe. The plan, he finally continued, voice steady, was for you to leave home this evening for a reservation, an upscale restaurant downtown, a decoy invitation. Dinner. The dinner. I felt my breath tighten, not from shock, but from the confirmation that intuition had been whispering long before fear arrived. They intended to intercept your vehicle en route. He continued. You would have been taken to a secondary location. Not killed, not harmed, taken, controlled, forced. Abduction is a quiet word compared to the weight it carries. It doesn't scream. It restrains. It corners. And it changes everything you thought you knew about someone. My voice didn't break. And you're sure he was involved? We have communications, he answered. Voice recordings. Coordinated planning. Recordings. Communications. Plans. This wasn't impulse. This wasn't anger. This was my son waking up, walking around, pretending love while burying malice under his tongue. Where is he now? I asked. In holding. He's not cooperating. Not cooperating. That meant denial, blame, ego. Ms. Reynolds, he added gently, this wasn't a misunderstanding. I didn't respond. When grief stands beside pride, words become unnecessary. Are you someplace safe? He asked. I looked around my quiet home, familiar walls now feeling like witnesses instead of shelter. I'm here. He exhaled slowly. We're sending a patrol to check your property perimeter. Stay inside until they confirm. I hung up and walked to the hallway window. Outside, sunlight rested on the lawn like the world had chosen today to look beautiful despite everything. Beauty feels cruel when truth arrives dressed in betrayal. Movement across the street caught my eye. A police cruiser turning onto the block, slow, methodical, and behind it, something worse. A silver sedan. Familiar. The kind you see often enough to file away, but not question. But this morning, my mind replayed it. That same car drifting past before sunrise, engine humming like a heartbeat outside my home. And then a memory surfaced, that car pulling up to my house 2 weeks ago. My niece Renee stepping out, hair tied back, waving quickly before walking inside with groceries. She just felt like dropping off. A kind gesture, or a rehearsal. Suspicion rose, not loud, but steady, like a cup being filled slowly until the water meets the rim. My phone buzzed again. A text from my security system. Motion detected at the end of the driveway. I opened the feed, expecting a stranger. But no, the frame held something worse. That same sedan creeping forward, pausing as if deciding whether to stop or flee. And then it backed up, disappearing out of view like guilt reversing itself. Family doesn't always protect you. Sometimes it circles you, deciding which side of survival to stand on. My doorbell chimed, the sound sharp enough to make my shoulders tense. Patrol arriving. I inhaled and stepped toward the foyer. Before I reached the door, my phone rang again, same police line. Ms. Reynolds. Yes, we need you to come down to the station. I steadied my posture. For what purpose? There was a pause, heavier than the air itself. There's someone here claiming they were involved in the planning. They've asked for you. My heart didn't drop. It braced. Not for pain, but for truth. We need you to identify something. Police stations have a particular kind of quiet, not soft, not peaceful, restrained. The kind of silence that knows truth is being peeled back in rooms only meant for the unprepared. I sat in a plastic chair that felt colder than it had any right to be, hands folded in my lap like I was holding on to dignity instead of skin. I wasn't trembling, but I wasn't still either. My body knew something my heart hadn't said out loud, yet this wasn't a misunderstanding I was walking into. This was truth with sharp teeth. A detective guided me down a narrow hallway, fluorescent lights buzzing above us like they were irritated to witness deceit. He asked to speak with you. She murmured, I understand this is difficult. Difficult. The word felt small compared to the weight pressing against my ribs. Mothers know the difference between confusion and betrayal. Confusion asks questions. Betrayal waits, quiet, already knowing the answers, and grieving anyway. We stopped outside a glass view room. Through the pane, Levon sat at a metal table, head down, hands clasped like a prayer without God in it. I exhaled once, slow and steady, before stepping inside. He looked up the moment the door clicked, and there it was, the smile. The soft, practiced, Mom, it's not what it looks like smile. A boy's smile painted onto a man who'd made a grown decision. Ma, he breathed, eyes filling too fast, too suddenly. Thank God you're here. Not remorse. Strategy. He stood to reach for me, but the shackles on his wrist stopped the gesture halfway. The sound of metal was louder than his voice. Somewhere in that clang, something inside me shifted. The part that had always protected him quietly took a step back. Sit, Levon, I said, not cold, controlled. He sat, eyes glossy, breath shaking for effect. Ma, they're lying. I don't know what they told you, but you know me. You know I'd never. I held up a hand, and his mouth snapped shut like he knew this wasn't a conversation he could perform his way through. Tell me what happened. I said, truth only. He leaned forward, desperation curling around his words. I've been stressed. Wrong place, wrong time. Some business deal went sideways, and they're trying to drag me into, there it was, blame dressed as innocence. A story already stitched together, too tight around the edges to breathe. He forgot something important. Lies tremble when truth stands still. They said you planned to intercept my car tonight. I replied calmly, to take me somewhere else. His face changed, just for a second. A flicker, a glitch in the performance. Then he frowned, hurt dripping artificial. They're twisting things. Why would I ever hurt you? You tell me. His jaw flexed, then the switch, anger slipping through the cracks. You always assume the worst, he snapped softly. You've never trusted me. You're always trying to control everything. Control. The word landed heavy, ugly, borrowed. So not his, and yet so perfectly placed. My phone vibrated in my purse. I pulled it out without breaking eye contact. Cousin Renee. I answered. Her voice rushed out, panicked. Patricia, what did you do? They said you got Levon locked up. Why would you do that to your own son? My blood didn't boil. It cooled. Cold enough to understand. He'd already started the campaign. The story. The character assassination. Is that what he told you? I asked softly. He said you overreacted. Said you've been suffocating him for years. Trying to control his life. Suffocating. Controlling. Words fed to her like spoiled fruit. Behind the glass, Levon watched me, waiting to see if I would fold. I see, I said, and hung up. Silence stretched. He swallowed. Ma, please believe me. I looked at him, not at the son I raised, but at the man he chose to become. Belief is earned, not begged. A metal door clanged somewhere down the hall. A sound followed, soft, broken, raw. A woman crying. Near. Too near. The detective reappeared. Ms. Reynolds, she murmured, we need you to come with us. Someone else involved is here. And she requested your presence. Behind the thin wall, the sobbing rose, not theatrical, not planned. Pure fear. The kind that comes from a conscience waking up too late. Please follow me, the detective said quietly. We need you to identify something. The detective led me down another hallway, slower this time, like truth was a fragile thing that might shatter if we walked too fast. Every step sounded too loud, too final, like the floor was keeping score of every lie that had been told in that building today. When she opened the door, I didn't walk in. I observed first, something I never used to do before trusting people. But trust had become a stranger in the last few hours, and observation was the only company I recognized. A young woman sat inside, hands clasped, eyes swollen red like she'd been crying for days, not hours. She didn't look up at first. Shame knows the ground better than it knows the sky. Ms. Reynolds, the detective murmured. She asked to speak with you. I stepped forward slowly, presence steady, back straight, grief tucked neatly behind dignity. Who are you? The girl flinched like the question slapped her. She lifted her face. Fear, guilt, and something like regret flickered across her features in uneven waves. My name is Alicia. Her voice was small, the kind people use when they're not sure they deserve to speak. And why am I here, Alicia? Her hands trembled in her lap. Because I didn't know it would go this far. I swear I didn't. No one swears innocence so quickly unless guilt is pacing behind them. I didn't want this to happen to you, she whispered. I thought he was just angry. I didn't think he'd actually go through with it. The room shrunk around us. She wasn't going to say his name. She didn't need to. We were speaking about the same man. How do you know my son? Her eyes dropped again. We were seeing each other. Seeing. A polite word for betrayal wearing perfume. She swallowed hard. I thought he loved me. I believed him. when he said things weren't good between you two. I didn't flinch. A mother learns long ago to bleed internally with grace. And what were these things he told you? Her lips trembled. He said you controlled everything, that you treated him like a child, that you didn't trust him. He said you kept him small on purpose, that you were weak and easy to pressure. Weak, easy to pressure. The words didn't ricochet. They embedded themselves. Quiet pain hit harder than any scream ever could. My son's betrayal didn't come in violence first. It came in narrative. He softened me into a story he could justify attacking. Did you believe him? I asked, voice even. She nodded slowly, shame dripping down her face like sweat. I did, at first, until I saw how he talked to you, how he looked at you. How did he look at me? Like you were the obstacle, she whispered, not the mother. Something inside me didn't break. It rearranged. Love that had always stood front and center moved to the back row, and caution took its place. She continued, voice shaking. He told me he needed access to some things. He said if you wouldn't give it willingly, there were ways to make you agree. He said you'd fold, like a paper, like I was made of corners and compromise. Why warn me? I asked. No softness, just truth. She swallowed, because I realized he wasn't planning to scare you. He was planning to own you, to take everything. And I knew if he got that far, he wouldn't stop. Fear laced through her next breath, and I didn't want blood on my hands, yours or his. Tears she tried to hold back fell anyway, not beautiful tears, not movie tears. Real ones, heavy ones, regret layered with fear. I didn't come here to apologize, she whispered, shaking. I came because you deserve to know who your son really is. He's not who you think. He's done things you don't know about. The detective's hand pressed gently against my elbow. Ms. Reynolds, she murmured, there's more she needs to show you. More. As if the world hadn't already changed shape twice today. I stood there, spine straight, voice low, steel settling behind my ribs like armor. Then show me everything. Alicia lifted her eyes. Fear, loyalty broken, truth trembling in her hands. He's done things you don't know about, she repeated softly like it was a prayer or a confession. And I felt it, the shift from heartbreak to readiness, because revelation wasn't a wound. It was a weapon being placed in my palm. They led me into a room that smelled like paper and fluorescent lights. A space where truth doesn't come soft, it comes printed, dated, and signed. A stack of files sat on a steel table. Real things, real ink, real decisions someone made about my life without asking if I wanted to participate in the betrayal. Detective Gray slid a folder toward me. We need you to understand the scope, she said. Her voice wasn't pitying. It was respectful. As if she knew I wasn't just a mother today. I was a witness to the dismantling of what I believed I built right. Inside the folder were photocopies of documents, bank authorizations, transfer requests, access forms. Some typed, some printed, some with handwriting I recognized instantly. Leave-ons. Neat, slanted, determined. But one page made my stomach tighten, my handwriting beside his. My signature. Date, 3 months ago. A Tuesday. I remember because it was the day I was rushing to get to my cardiology checkup. Levon had stopped by that morning, holding coffee and pastries like he was just playing the caring son. Ma, sign this real quick. They needed it for the insurance. he'd said, sliding the page across my kitchen counter while talking fast, distracting with compliments and concern. I had been half-dressed, half-rushed, half-trusting. A mother gives trust the way breathing gives air. And I signed, without knowing that pen was the first step into a trap. He was building brick by brick while telling me he loved me. My throat didn't tighten. It sharpened. This wasn't shock that had passed. This was the moment clarity walked in, sat down, and made itself at home in my chest. "Is that your signature?" Detective Gray asked gently. "Yes," I said, but the word didn't feel like surrender. It felt like confirmation, the kind that wakes you. That document, she explained, would have granted him partial authority if you ever became incapacitated. He later attempted to file full transfer paperwork, but it didn't process. He needed more. Incapacitated. Such a clinical word. Soft on the tongue, brutal in intention. They didn't need me gone. Just silent. Helpless. Unable to say no. The betrayal wasn't emotional anymore. It had paperwork, dates, planning. My son didn't fall. He climbed down a ladder of his own, making into a place where love doesn't live. "Ms. Reynolds," the detective continued, "he's been preparing this for months. Accounts, properties, medical rights. This wasn't spur of the moment. It was structured. Structured. I raised a strategist, but I raised one who forgot, who taught him patience. I turned the page. Notes in the margins, reminders to push timeline, confirm route, secure signatures, and one line circled twice in pen. "She trusts me. Use that. Trust, the rope he planned to hang my freedom with." I thought back to that morning months ago, the way he hugged me, brief and distracted, the way he avoided my eyes as he slid the papers over. Back then, I thought he was just busy or tired. I excused it because love excuses until clarity replaces hope. A soft buzz vibrated from my purse, my phone. I pulled it out slowly, feeling the world pause for a breath that wasn't offered freely. The screen lit with a message from an unknown number, no name, but I knew the rhythm of the words before I read them. "Leave on." The message was short, sharp, void of apology. You know why I did this? A mother is many things: protector, nurturer, witness, anchor. But in that moment, I became something else entirely. A woman who saw her child clearly for the first time. Not the boy she raised, but the man he chose to become when she wasn't looking. Detective Gray spoke again, softer now. "There's more evidence," she said. "We'll go through it step by step." I closed the folder gently, not because I was done, but because I had just begun. The tears didn't come. Not one. They were replaced by something steadier, a new awareness sitting beside my heart like a silent companion. He didn't just betray me. He underestimated me, and that was going to be his mistake, not mine. The drive home from the station felt longer than the hours before dawn. Houses passed in slow motion, each porch looking like it held someone who knew nothing of the battle I had entered without consent. That's the quiet cruelty of betrayal. The world keeps spinning even when your life stops to watch itself burn. Inside my home, silence greeted me like an old friend. I stood in the foyer, coat still on, keys in my hand, staring at the framed family photos lining the hall. Levon as a toddler, cake on his face. Levon at middle school graduation, eyes bright. Levon at 25, suit sharp, smile proud. I touched none of them. Love remembers, but love also learns. My phone rang before I took 2 steps. My sister-in-law's name flashed. I answered, bracing myself without even knowing why. You need to calm down, she started. No greeting, no pause, just entitlement dressed as concern. This is getting blown out of proportion. Boys make mistakes, Patricia. Mistake. The word people use when they want to soften cruelty, so it feels like clumsy misfortune instead of intention. He planned to abduct me. I replied, voice low, steady, steadier than I felt. She scoffed, an ugly sound, sharp and dismissive. People say things when they're upset. You've always been dramatic. Dramatic. There it was. The invalidation women get when we stand up instead of crumble. This isn't about drama, I said. It's about survival. Survival? She snapped. You're his mother. If you love him, you'll fix this quietly. Do you want him in prison? Do you want to see your own son destroyed? Her tone wasn't worry. It was threat wrapped in guilt. I won't solve what I didn't create. I said calmly. That silence on her end wasn't shock. It was realization she couldn't move me. She exhaled sharply and hung up without goodbye. I hadn't taken 2 breaths before the phone lit again. Cousin Derek. Then Aunt Sheila. Then family group chat notifications firing off like bullets made of judgment. He's your blood. Handle this at home. We don't call police on family. Forgive and pray it away. Forgiveness is holy, but forgiveness without accountability is permission. And I was done permitting destruction wearing my last name. I turned the phone face down. Let them talk. Let them judge. Let them reveal themselves. Sometimes God doesn't remove people. He lets them walk out so you can see the door they came through. A buzz vibrated under my palm. Not a call, a message. Private number, but the words hit like a whisper from the past. I tried to warn you once. Underneath, a name, Amina, Levon's ex-wife. Soft-spoken, respectful. Left suddenly 2 years ago, claiming it just wasn't working. We never talked deeply about it. She had looked tired then, not physically, but spiritually. The exhaustion of someone who tried to love someone who never wanted guidance. Only control. I typed 1 word. Why? Her reply came quick, like truth had been waiting too long to breathe. He became someone dangerous. I left before I disappeared. I stared at that message, feeling a chill crawl slow across my shoulders. Amina had escaped quietly. I was only just learning I needed to escape too, not from a man, but from the illusion I had raised safety instead of threat. My phone buzzed again. This time family voice notes flooding in, overlapping accusations, pity disguised as piety, lectures about motherhood and loyalty. I turned the phone off. Not airplane mode. Off. There is a difference between disconnecting and choosing silence. I chose silence. I walked to my dining room, placed both palms flat on the table, and breathed. Not weak, not wounded, waking. Betrayal had stripped me, yes, but it also revealed something I had forgotten existed beneath softness, spine. I raised Levon. I loved him. I prayed over him, but I would not be sacrificed by him. Not quietly, not with grace mistaken for surrender. I spoke to the empty room, voice even, steady, decided. I'm his mother, not his shield. The decision settled in me like iron cooling into form. No more protecting him. I woke the next morning before the sun, calm in a way grief alone can't explain. Something had settled overnight. Not peace, position. I wasn't bracing anymore. I was preparing. I sat at my kitchen table with pen and notepad, listing every asset I owned, every account that had my name on it, every property tied to my husband's legacy. Not as a mother, as a woman who finally understood she was a target. The difference felt like armor. At 8:01 a.m. sharp, I called a lawyer. Not my church friend's son who did wills and divorces on the side. No, I wanted someone who had blood on their teeth professionally. I remembered a woman I saw speak at a charity event years ago, attorney Simone Caldwell. Fierce reputation. The kind who didn't blink when men in suits shifted nervously around her. I called her office. They put me through immediately. My last name still meant something in this town. Ms. Reynolds. Simone's voice came through smooth, crisp, expensive. I heard. I'm sorry. Tell me what you want to do. Simple. Direct. No pity, just tools ready for instruction. I want everything protected. I said, every asset, every deed, every signature. And I want a forensic accountant on every financial move my son has attempted in the past year. No quiver, no apology in my voice. I spoke like I finally remembered who I was before motherhood asked me to be soft. Consider it done, she replied. We'll freeze all secondary access, initiate fraud review, and coordinate with prosecutors. But Patricia, her tone dipped, respectful but firm. Don't waver. If you hesitate, they'll exploit it. I'm done hesitating. I told her. We ended the call. I exhaled, not relief, not pain, just clarity sliding into place like puzzle pieces that had been waiting to be seen. Then I walked down the hallway to my bedroom, toward the closet where my late husband kept his safe. I hadn't opened it in years. My fingers hesitated over the dial, not from fear, but memory. He trusted Levon, loved him deeply, believed he'd carry the family legacy with honor. I once believed that too. Inside the safe were insurance papers, bonds, old photos, and a folder I didn't recognize. Brown, unmarked, thicker than the others. I pulled it out, sat on the edge of my bed, and opened it. Receipts, agreements, transactions, notes with Levon's handwriting, dates going back nearly a year, loans taken in hushed silence, cash withdrawals that didn't match his income, accounts under shell names connected to my husband's estate, and scribbles, ideas, reminders, calculations. I scanned fast, eyes narrowing. Accelerate contingency plan. Pressure point equals emotional leverage. Mother vulnerable when alone. Timelines shift if assets lock. He'd been preparing, watching me like strategy, not blood, not son, architect of my undoing. Then another page, a draft letter requesting medical guardianship if I became mentally unfit. My breath stopped, then restarted, slow but sharp. He wasn't planning to steal from me. He was planning to erase me. The betrayal wasn't impulsive. It was engineered. Layer by layer, month by month, built like a bridge he expected me to walk across blindfolded. I didn't cry. Tears belonged to innocence. And innocence had left this house long before I realized it. Instead, I folded each page carefully, like truth deserved neat handling even when it cut. I placed the folder in my bag, locked the safe, and stood up straighter than I had in days. If he built a plan for me, I would build one for myself. Only mine wouldn't fail because I wouldn't underestimate the opponent. I had made that mistake once. My phone buzzed. A text from Simone. Bank access frozen. Records flagged. Investigator assigned. Power. Quiet. Efficient. Mine. Another buzz. Not Simone this time. Unknown number. For a beat, I wondered if it was him again. But no, this message wasn't a child's arrogance. It was law's efficiency. Detective Gray. We reviewed all evidence. It's extensive. He planned this months ago. I stared at the screen. The truth now fully formed. Undeniable, complete. Months. Not a moment. Not a lapse. A commitment. And if he committed to destroying me, then I would commit to surviving him publicly, legally, and with every inch of dignity he forgot I owned. Courtrooms don't smell like justice. They smell like nerves, paper, and people pretending they aren't afraid. I walked through those tall double doors with my back straight, purse tucked at my elbow, and grief pressed flat beneath composure. I didn't come as a mother today. I came as a woman who finally understood the cost of loving someone who thought blood made them untouchable. Whispers followed me like smoke. Familiar faces, neighbors, choir members, women I'd prayed beside, hugged, fed after funerals, all crowding benches, pretending they came for truth, but craving spectacle. Eyes slid over me, not in comfort, but in quiet judgment. Poor Levon. Imagine calling the police on your own child. Some mothers don't know how to forgive. Forgive. The most abused word in church language when accountability enters the room. The bailiff called the room to order. Levon stepped out in cuffs, and my heart didn't break. Heartbreak had already come and gone. Instead, I observed him the way you watch a stranger on the street, noticing details, searching for humanity you once assumed existed. He lifted his eyes, saw me, and transformed. Lips trembled, shoulders softened, face folding into the picture of wounded innocence. A performance as practiced as a Sunday morning greeting routine. Mom. He breathed softly, voice carried enough to be heard, enough to sting. Like I had dragged him here, rather than him dragging us both into truth. The room murmured. Someone, too, rose behind me, let out a sympathetic sigh. That was the thing about manipulation. It performs better in public than honesty does. The judge entered, stern expression carved into experience. Papers shuffled, charges read. Words like conspiracy, kidnapping attempt, fraud, intent to coerce carved the air. Each one stamped a new bruise on my spirit, not because I doubted, but because truth spoken aloud always lands heavier than truth discovered alone. His lawyer stood, polished and smooth. Your Honor, my client is a respected community member. A misunderstanding has grown into unnecessary fear. He loves his mother. He would never harm her. Levon wiped at his eyes, just enough moisture to look human, not enough to apologize. He glanced at me again, not pleading, but challenging. Fold for me, his eyes dared. Protect me, like you always did. But mothers are not shields. We are humans. And I had bled enough for someone who sharpened my love into a weapon against me. My lawyer rose, calm as winter. Feelings do not outweigh evidence. Intent was documented. Collusion was established. Our position remains firm. The whispers behind me thickened. Cold woman. Heartless. A mother should stand by her child. I kept my face still. Respect doesn't disappear because gossip grows. A soft voice broke through the murmurs. Sister Lillian, church elder, leaning toward another woman in her pew. God tests us, but turning your back on family, her tone wasn't hateful. just blind. Blind faith can wound as deeply as spite. I didn't respond. You don't answer critiques built on ignorance. Silence was my shield today, but not silence of fear. Silence of focus. The prosecutor presented preliminary evidence, paper trails, phone logs. Even a puzzle has edges, and this picture was forming quickly. Finally, the judge spoke. His eyes scanned the room, then rested briefly on me, not pity but acknowledgement. This matter carries significant weight and public interest. Given the evidence submitted, this case will proceed to trial. Gasps. A hand clasped a chest somewhere behind me. Someone whispered a prayer like someone had died, because in a way, someone had. The son I raised was gone long before today. I just hadn't known where to bury the illusion. Levon's face cracked for the first time, not into remorse, but into rage disguised as confusion. He opened his mouth as though to call out again, but the bailiff moved, and the clink of shackles cut through the room sharper than any words could. As he was led away, his stare burned into mine, not boyish anymore, not pleading, a warning or a threat. Hard to tell the difference when ego is wounded. I didn't flinch. The judge's gavel struck wood. Court adjourned. Trial date will be set. The courtroom felt different the second time. Not buzzing, not whispering, bracing. Like everyone knew something sharp was coming, and they didn't want to be caught looking away. I sat still, palms resting gently on my skirt, chin lifted just enough to remind myself dignity is not posture, it is discipline. Alicia sat on the witness stand, fingers trembling as she held a glass of water. She wasn't the frightened girl from the interrogation room anymore. She looked like someone who walked through fear and came out holding truth in both hands. Her voice was low but unwavering. He told me his mother was easy to manipulate, she said, eyeing the jury. He said she trusted him too much, that she wouldn't fight. He said rich older women don't survive pressure. They fold when you press hard enough. A murmur rippled through the gallery, quiet disgust, shock, disapproval. Levon's jaw tightened. His lawyer whispered something to him urgently, but he shrugged him off with a violent flick of his hand. The mask was slipping, not gently, but tearing. She continued, breath shaky, but steadying as she spoke. He promised me the money. Said once she was out of the way, we'd have a life without old people interference. Her voice cracked on the last word, and the courtroom felt the fracture. Levon leaned forward suddenly, voice slicing through the air. You lying snake. Mr. Reynolds, control yourself. The judge snapped. He slammed his palms on the table, metal cuffs clinking. She was nothing. You think she cared about anyone but herself. He pointed at Alicia. You used me. You wanted the money more than I did. His lawyer hissed his name under his breath, eyes widening. It didn't matter. Levon wasn't listening anymore. Ego had taken the wheel. The prosecutor stood calmly. Ms. Carter, she addressed Alicia softly. Did the defendant ever express intent to harm his mother if she resisted? Alicia swallowed hard. He said if she didn't sign willingly, he'd make sure she couldn't fight anymore. Gasps. Chairs shifted. Someone whispered, Lord have mercy. Levon laughed, sharp, bitter, manic. People say things when they're frustrated. She pushed me. She always pushed me. You don't know what it's like having a mother who controls everything. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. A mother learns to endure the tantrum of a child, but this wasn't childhood. This was a man revealing the rot he cultivated and calling it justification. The judge banged the gavel once. "Mr. Reynolds, another outburst, and you will be removed." He stared at me then, not as a son, but as a cornered animal searching for anything soft left to bite. I saw in his eyes the truth pride never admits. He never expected me to survive him. Outside the courtroom during recess, media gathered like hungry birds. A reporter approached hastily, microphone in hand, turning to Levon as he was escorted. "Is it true your mother fabricated this? Sources say she's always been controlling." His eyes gleamed opportunity. "Exactly," he said loud enough for cameras. "She's vindictive, bitter, couldn't stand me having my own life. She set me up. She." Before he finished, another journalist cut in. "Interesting, because we just obtained sealed statements and case files, including recordings submitted by police." Her tone sharpened. "It looks like the evidence contradicts everything you're saying." Silence fell so hard it echoed. His lawyer paled. Levon's face contorted, rage choking his words into silence. Performances die quickly when truth enters the room. Court resumed. The prosecutor pressed a button. Speakers hummed. And then his voice filled the room. Cold, calculated, confident. "Get her in the car. She trusts me. Don't mess this up. Once she signs, she's done." A hush fell over the courtroom so thick, even the walls seemed to listen. Levon froze, eyes wide, mask shattered, every lie collapsing in on itself like a house built on arrogance and borrowed charm. Alicia covered her mouth, tears spilling again. Not guilt, but release. I didn't move. Couldn't. Not out of shock, out of knowing. I had suspected. Now I had heard. The judge leaned forward, voice grave. "Final. We will recess and reconvene for further evidence." As the recording clicked off, the courtroom exhaled like a single creature. Screams don't always sound loud. Sometimes they sound like a truth too heavy to swallow. And the truth had arrived, with his voice as witness. Sentencing days don't feel like endings. They feel like truth being escorted into the light by force, hands bound, screaming the whole way. I sat in the courtroom again. Same bench, same posture, back straight, jaw steady, heart no longer raw, just resolved. The gallery was full. People had come not for justice, but to witness the conclusion of disbelief. So many familiar faces, some with sympathy in their eyes, others with the quiet judgment of those who have never been tested by blood and betrayal at the same time. Levon was brought in. No arrogance left, just bitterness tightening every muscle in his face. He didn't look at me, not because he refused to, but because looking meant remembering the version of himself he ruined. The judge entered. The courtroom rose. Her presence was heavy, not cruel, not emotional, simply prepared to do what must be done. "We are here for sentencing in the matter of the state versus Levon Reynolds," she announced. "Mr. Reynolds, do you have anything you'd like to say before I render judgment?" Levon stood. The room held its breath. He opened his mouth, and nothing honest came out. "She set me up," he muttered, voice low, rehearsed. "My mother has always." The judge lifted a hand. "Mr. Reynolds, the recordings, documents, witness testimony, and your own communications contradict that. This is not a space for manipulation. This is a space for consequence." His jaw clenched, rage flickering like a storm that had nowhere left to go. Then someone rose from the back. Aunt Sheila, lace hat shaking with emotion. Your Honor, if I may. The judge's gaze cut like sharpened glass. Ma'am, you have no standing in this matter. Sit down. She raised him alone. Aunt Sheila cried, anyway. She's punishing him for being ambitious. This is a family issue. The judge's gavel hit wood. Silence. This is a criminal matter. Family silence does not override the law. If anything, family silence created this. A hush thickened. Even the walls seemed to hold the sound. I kept my hands folded. I didn't defend myself. I didn't bow my head. Women like me have spent a lifetime apologizing for things we never did. Today, silence was not surrender. It was proof I no longer sought permission to survive. The judge continued, voice steady. Mr. Reynolds planned, coordinated, and attempted to execute the kidnapping and coercion of his mother. This court will not reward calculated malice disguised as familial conflict. Levon's stare finally lifted, not at the judge, but at me. His eyes burned with something wild. Not sorrow, not regret, just shock that the world didn't bend for him after all. Therefore, the judge said, gavel poised, I sentence you to. The words fell like gates slamming shut. Years, fines, federal oversight, no contact, asset freeze, rehabilitation evaluation. The courtroom didn't gasp. No one moved. It was the kind of moment truth didn't celebrate. It simply existed. Heavy. Final. Levon's body tensed. His fists clenched. A guard stepped closer. He wasn't a fallen son in that moment. He was a man who had lost control of the narrative and couldn't stand the weight of reality. As they moved to take him, he turned toward me fully, face twisting into something that once belonged to anger, but now belonged to something darker. You think you won? His voice cracked, a dangerous whisper turning to a roar. This isn't over. I'll get out. And when I do, the guards pulled him back, metal clanging like punctuation. His voice tore through the room one final time, raw and venomous. I swear I'll come for you. The bailiff restrained him, voices rising, chairs scraping, chaos beginning to stir like a gust through the room. I did not move, not a flinch, not a blink, because threats are loud when power is lost, and fear only belongs to those who don't know their worth. I knew mine now. The judge's gavel came down, once silencing everything. Court is adjourned. Some endings don't roar. They hum, steady, certain, like truth settling exactly where it was always meant to land. Weeks passed after sentencing, and my house felt different. Not haunted, not hollow, cleansed. Pain does not disappear overnight. It evaporates slowly in rooms where strength has replaced denial. I woke early again, but not from fear. Routine. Purpose. Morning light spilled across my dining table, catching the edges of a stack of brochures I'd been reviewing. Reynolds Foundation for Elder Financial Protection. The glossy cover held an image of clasped hands, not fragile hands, but hands holding wisdom and worth. The idea had come quietly one night after court, when I realized silence protects danger more than noise ever does. I would not whisper my survival. I would turn it into a shield for women who looked like me, women taught to love until it hurt, forgive until they vanished, trust until it cost them everything. No, we rise differently now. Simone, my attorney, believed in the mission instantly. You're going to start something powerful, she told me, and you won't just help people. You'll embarrass him without ever saying his name. That wasn't the goal, but it was a truth I didn't run from. at the Foundation's launch brunch. I stood behind a podium draped in white linen, gold accents catching the soft lights. Familiar faces filled the room. Some came in secret guilt. Some came in apology. Some came because they finally understood I did not betray family. I refused to let family betray me. Cameras flashed. Applause rose. I don't think they were clapping for resilience. They were clapping for survival that refused to shrink. I spoke calmly, voice even, eyes steady. We must teach our children love, I said, but we must teach ourselves boundaries. Protection is not abandonment, and accountability is not betrayal. When you do not hold someone to consequences, you do not save them. You allow the darkness in them to breathe. No names, no shame, just truth standing without apology. People wiped tears quietly. I didn't. I had already cried in private and risen in public. After the event, I walked to the garden outside the venue. Roses, lavender, gentle wind. Peace didn't feel like surrender anymore. It felt like preparation for everything I deserved, but had once been too tired to expect. A familiar voice called my name. Sister Marian, church sister, Bible-carrying, always praying for peace. She walked toward me slow, eyes softer now. I misjudged you, she said. No excuses, just honesty. Forgiveness doesn't mean foolishness, and God doesn't ask us to hug danger. I nodded. She squeezed my hand once, firm and warm, the kind of touch that doesn't ask for permission to return faith to someone. Standing there, the world didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt earned. My heart wasn't light, but it was lifted. Grief no longer weighed. It instructed. Strength didn't roar. It exhaled. I didn't visit leave-on. I wouldn't. Some relationships are not ended by punishment. They are ended by truth. And truth had already done its work. People speak of losing children like losing limbs. But some severings save lives. And I chose to survive mine. As I walked to my car, the breeze brushed my cheek like God whispering approval. Not for choosing pain, for refusing it. My story wasn't a tragedy. It was a return, a reclamation, a mother stepping back into herself without the weight she once mistook for love. He didn't lose a mother. He revealed the monster he chose to be.